Assalamu alaikum and peace, and welcome back. Another broadcast of Black Muslim in America. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to share. Also, I appreciate the comments. We're up to 84 subscribers. Alhamdulillah, that's pretty good. Let's keep it going. Get this message out. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Well, here we are again. And, Black Muslim in America, Black Dawah Networks, we were some of the first people to put it out there about Zayc and its leader and some of its faculty being anti-black and supporting white supremacist talking points. And when we dropped that, when I coined the term Zayc and the good folks at Black Dawah Network used that term too, it touched a nerve. And now we see other Muslims using it. And the reason I know it did is because there was an episode of the Mad Mamluks podcast, and they had on their show the guy Abdullah bin Hamid Ali. And if you don't know who that is, go back and listen to my episode I did entitled Zayc Revisited. Basically, he's one of the faculty of Zayc who's peddling this right-wing nonsense. He was on an episode of their podcast, and who are these guys, Mamluks? They seem like some cornballs, and not because they're not cool or because they aren't hip. I say that because they always making cringe jokes and trying to troll and giggle and laugh throughout the show and not really be serious. In my opinion, that's what they are. They are non-white people, but when I listen to them, it's like I'm listening to a group of white college guys trolling and joking around, just being honest. And to my white Muslims out there, you know what I'm talking about. You've had folks like that. They always trolling and just being cornballs, and you kind of tolerate them, but you don't hang out with them too much. So they had Hamid Ali on there, and these dudes came with playing the victim role of reverse racism. They said something to the effect of, well, yeah, and it's people out there who say you're pushing racist talking points, but they're making up names like Zayc. That's being racist because of what that word is attached to. That's when I knew, okay, what we said has been felt and heard, alhamdulillah. Them being trolls or acting in a trolling manner, they should be the ones who are actually understanding of creating terms that will stick and are witty and will be provocative to cause you to pay attention to what's being said. They should be the first to understand that. But when it's used against white supremacy and those who are their minions and those who peddle his message, then it becomes reverse racism. I told you all this would happen in my older broadcasts I've done. I told you that instead of addressing white supremacy, instead of addressing the anti-black racism, instead of addressing certain Muslims pushing racist right-wing talking points, they would turn it into playing the victim or saying, oh God, you've used such and such term. How can a Muslim say such things? They will turn it into some moral authority high ground stuff. This is the same thing they do with critical race theory. If you start to attack white supremacy and you start to call out Zayc, then they say, well, this is the problem with critical race theory. No, this is the problem with white supremacy. Because they always try to do these type of things because this is a tactic of not only white supremacists and their minions and those that fall under following the code of white supremacy, but this is also the tactic of those who aren't sincere in addressing a problem and want to deflect. They start coming with the house Muslim babble. See, people like us, we're actually in the fields, we're actually in the streets, and I don't mean on criminality type stuff. I mean your average black man, average black woman from the soil, the grassroots, the people. And we have a voice, and our voice is against white supremacy. And when we see white supremacists prop up its preachers to call us into submission, we're not falling for it, and we call it out. And when we do, the only thing you can do is try to run interference or shame us for calling them out. How dare you say that about such and such? They've studied at the greatest of Islamic schools and they know Arabic forwards and backwards and have memorized the whole Quran. They have ijaza. Ijaza. Do you have ijaza, brother? He's a scholar in his own right. How dare you speak against him? So that is what it becomes. These Mamluks just seem like apologists for white supremacy, in my opinion. Because even when they had the good brother Sheikh Yusuf Rios on their show, he started to go in on white supremacy and was basically saying how white supremacy is the major issue. He wasn't ignoring the issue of liberalism and the LGBT stuff. He was just saying basically how all of that is stemming from white supremacy. So let's deal with that first. And they were pretty much arguing against him on that. Basically using the excuse saying, well, there's always a certain group that rules over their particular nation and they get more benefits and look out for their own more. So really, we shouldn't worry about that. That's always going to happen. I mean, it's bad, but it is what it is. But yet they're completely ignoring how there is a major difference between hooking up your people with a little more than others and just full-on white supremacy, which not only wants to give extreme levels of benefits to its own, but also attempts to subjugate, kill, harm, and maim black people as a part of its belief system. And it's global. It isn't just something that's happening in small little pockets. So that excuse they use is a blatant support and a blatant apologetic for white supremacy. And this is why they are cornballs. I also remember them interviewing a white Muslim by the name of Robert Dufour, and he is a member of the Islam for Europeans network. He's a Canadian who lives in Canada, but is of French descent. And their whole movement is about creating a quote-unquote safe space for white, or I guess European Muslims. Obviously, this dude doesn't live in Europe, but he's speaking for them, which is odd. So it seems more of making a white space for Muslims. And, I'm going to be honest, that's cool. But to me, it's a very dangerous move. It puts me on alert. Because the real reason they want to section themselves off is because they fear genetic annihilation. They know that whether within Islam or outside of Islam in the whole globe, white people are the minority surrounded by melanated people. And they know Islam is the religion of the melanated people of the globe. So they think that if they become Muslim, they have to protect their race and create white spaces so that they can protect their race's lineage. And that's kind of understandable, but it is very dangerous and it puts me on alert, as I said, because if you have read ISIS papers by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, this is the whole idea and a very strong theory about why white supremacy came into being. Their fear of genetic annihilation. I mean, let's look at it. White supremacy pretty much was cultivated during a time when the black Muslims and Moors ruled over Europe and had all their women, and they had them heavy to the point now some of them are basically a fixed mulatto race. White supremacy sprang from this because all the white folk got on cold with each other to oust the black conquerors in order to protect themselves from genetic annihilation. So this is very odd that now we see this Islam for Europeans popping up in the same lands where this same idea of white supremacy started. And the excuses they use are just kind of lame. One excuse was, well, when we come in contact with other masajid, they want to immediately prop us up. And, we're not trying to take over spaces just because we're white. So in order to help you guys in order to help you non-white people with your issues of white worship, we will make our own space. So he's acting like he's somehow helping the people. But the reason why this stuff goes on is because of white supremacy. So creating a space where it's mostly white Muslims will kind of just elevate you all. It'll just elevate you all more in the minds of those who have succumbed to white worship. and they will just look at y'all like some Mount Olympus in some sense. The problem is white supremacy. Deal with that. Then another reason he brought up is because he says, well, when white converts go to some masajid, people are put off by them because they assume they might be agents. So, so we don't always get welcome. Oh, okay. Now you're playing both sides of the fence. This is a tactic of white supremacy. And you know, not saying they are, but just let's give some context. White supremacists like to take both sides of the argument. So on one hand, he's saying how they being almost worshipped, and then on the other hand, it becomes, oh man, we're almost treated like Negroes. We are shunned. So now we need our own space to protect ourselves. Please, don't try to compare that. Don't try to conflate those two. Black Muslims have created their own spaces because of real issues of white supremacy, of anti-black racism that not only exists in the global sphere, but is heavy inside of the Muslim communities as well. The whole world is against foundational black Americans and against black people with their anti-black hatred. So it is out of necessity that we do this, not because of someone hurt our feelings because they thought we was an agent. So, you know, I really don't trust it at all. I'm going to just be honest. Then when you add to it that they had some suspicious characters writing for their blog site, one in particular was Umar Lee, who has gone back and forth in Islam, then became a politician, that puts me on alert. Also, remember my episode I did entitled Anti-Blackness in the Ummah. If you go to 27-minute and 42-second mark, there are some anti-black suspected white supremacist posts I put up of a guy named Maliki Click, who regularly puts up posts like this and then comes back and says he's trolling. He has me blocked now, and I think I blocked him too. You know, some of his tweets have been seen on Islam for European site as well. So that makes my attendance go up. But let's not also forget, Islam for Europeans, they love them some Hamza Yusuf, which brings us full circle, don't it? They got hella articles talking about Hamza Yusuf on there. It brings us right back to Zayc. And Zayc has already been called out for their anti-black white supremacist talking points. And my thing is this: if you feel like you have to protect yourself from genetic annihilation, I mean, okay, what's going to happen is going to happen. But hey, go ahead, knock yourself out. But just know that that puts me on high alert. Now, if you want to build some trust within that, then as white Muslims, y'all need to be putting in some major work to destroy white supremacy. If you're a Muslim, you're about justice, right? Y'all have the actual connections and in some instances power to make major moves and changes, as well as the finances. You're talking about leaving and starting your own spaces so that you won't be put on a pedestal. How about you just refuse to be put on a pedestal and give some of those finances to the masjids that you go to? How about supporting a black Muslim masjid? You know, all of that, we're going to build our own spaces and we're going to leave you alone so we won't be put on a pedestal. That's some symbolic stuff. How about, you know, those finances y'all have, y'all support a black Muslim business? How about some of that power you have, you talk to your Congress people and make them put laws on the books to protect black people? How about that? And you know, where is Islam for Europeans now? Where are they in the streets? With all that's going on, we see the uprisings in the streets. With all this stuff going on, you have other Muslims in the streets, and we definitely see the black Muslims out there, of course. But where are these Islam for Europeans at? In fact, they wrote a little open letter in support of the annual Black American Muslim Conference back in February, and they said, "Who are we to provide advice on how to handle issues such as police brutality and being visibly Muslim?" It's not about giving advice. It's about doing something about it. You're a Muslim who's supposed to stand up for justice, whether for or against yourself. So that little sentences don't make sense. And you, with your white privilege in a world of white supremacy, can do a lot. Now, to be clear, we're not begging you for your help. The foundational black Americans are going to handle this with or without you. But your silence speaks loud and clear. And they also had your boy Abdullah bin Hamid Ali at this conference as well. Once again, we're back to Zayc. So I'm going to just post these screenshots of again, Abdullah bin Hamid Ali talking about the easiest way to beat white supremacy and stamp out white privilege. And I'm going to read it for you if you can't really read it on the screen. So let me go to it here. He says, the easiest way to beat white supremacy and stamp out white privilege. There's no denying that the Anglo-Saxon, like people in almost any country or leading civilization throughout time, have enjoyed financial, socio-political, and cultural privilege. The privilege enjoyed by people of white skin is of special nature, but it's no longer regulated from without. Notwithstanding the fact that whites still predominant in all the major fields of influence, that phenomenon is not truly unique. Every single society is ruled by an organized racial or tribal elite, and that has largely been consistent throughout history. That whites do predominate, however, does not mean that all those designated as white share in the spoils of so-called white currency. Non-whites are the only people with the power to grant whites privilege. Now here he goes with the house Muslim Babble. Here I'm going to continue. And we readily and willfully do so. We do so every time we alter our choices of words when we speak, ask a question of them, or witness their embrace of our religion or movement in ways different from how we engage with our peers and other non-whites in general. We do so every time we make fun of or criticize darker skin, Photoshop pics of celebrities, and apply fair and lovely. So he's giving his bull crap. Let me go to the last paragraph. In this second paragraph, he ends it with a note saying, over 70% of women in Nigeria bleach their skin, and skin whitening cream in India outsells Coca-Cola, constituting a $500 million annual market. And so let me finish reading this last paragraph of this bullcrap. In other words, the only significant privilege whites have is what we give them. Since their privilege is largely socio-cultural and psycho-emotional, resulting from of us self-regulating our presumed but unconfessed inferiority to them, they can only stop receiving the privilege we believe they have by refusing to relent to it when we feel it welling up in us. Put plainly, the best way to beat white supremacy and to stamp out white privilege is to 1. Stop showing them special treatment by treating them the same way we treat everyone else. Okay, you hit me, I hit you back. 2. By refraining from comparing ourselves and our conditions to them and theirs. The privilege we impute to whites can scarcely be grasped by many of them because it originates inside each and every one of us. So it's not their fault many of them just don't get it. And the more we compare ourselves to them, the more we reinforce the idea that all the things good, bad, healthy, and ailing begin and end with the white standard. The fight against white privilege and white supremacy starts from within. Aww. Get out of here with that. These are the same people who are teaching many Muslims. Did you hear that bull crap? He putting all these big $5 words together to basically tell you it's your fault. That's all he's doing. You getting all discombobulated by these big old words, and he's flipping it and bouncing it on you, and he's telling you it's your fault. It's your fault white people hate you. It's your fault white supremacists hate you. There are many Muslims who think this Zayc is some high esteem established place of knowledge. And to be honest, it's giving that high esteem all because of Yusuf. That white worship that I mentioned is what gives this place its great esteem. Now, I could keep going in and responding to this, but I want you to read another brother's response just to show that we are on code and, we're handling business out here. Let me find it here. So this brother's name, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is Momadou Ta'al. And he says, This is so ridiculously tone deaf, it's unbelievable. Even more upsetting that it comes from someone who I used to hold in such high esteem, but has clearly been so overwhelmed by right wing Republican rhetoric that, that it has subsumed him. To say that the only privilege that exists is the one that is afforded to white people clearly demonstrate an ignorance of the past and its direct impact on the present. The rhetoric in this post stems from the same thought process that tells black people, you just need to do better for yourself, and why can't you be like insert immigrant group? They made their situation better. This is called the model minority, which Malcolm speaks of and explains why this reasoning is flawed. Briefly, you cannot compare other groups to the black American experience as the starting points are different, but I digress. This rhetoric is particularly insidious and odious as it seeks to lay blame on black people for the way the world is today, as if to say white privilege and white supremacy is upheld by black people. He gave specific examples of the real issue, skin lightening, that plagues many places in West Africa, whilst willfully ignoring how white skin became desirable in the first place. You cannot have such discussions without answering the question, why black people feel the need to compare themselves to white people in the first place. White privilege is very real, and it is not because black people give white people that power. Issues of systemic racism are directly imbued with white privilege. To ignore all of that and respond with, let's just stop looking up to white people and it will go away, displays a serious ignorance of the issues at hand. That is not to say white people will always have it easy in the world, but what we are saying when we use the term white privilege is that the world will never be made hard for you because you are white. I have refrained for a long time on commenting on Dr. Abdullah bin Hamid Ali, but I can no longer take black voices being used, especially by non-black Muslims, as mouthpieces for those who do not truly wish to honor the call of Black Lives Matter. So yeah, he pretty much summed it up pretty good. And not only that, but again, we see Hamid Ali posting suspected white supremacists on his Facebook page. So we know what it is, people. We as black Muslims should not be supporting such institutions. There will be no benefit for us there. It is there to make you a good slave to white supremacy, while also making you feel haughty and arrogant in your alleged Islamic knowledge. Another one of the folks that worked for Zayc, Imam Zayc Shacker, who I've spoken about as well, and has come to the defense of Hamza on occasions of Hamza's white supremacist talking points. He is now the head of MANA, which is the Muslim Alliance in North America. They say they are an alliance committed to Muslim issues and concerns that especially impact indigenous Muslims. So I guess, we're to assume that they mean black Muslims. And that's already a bad start because they're scared to make other people uncomfortable and just mention the word black. But they also now made Zayc Shacker the head of this organization. And that's not good. When you have someone who is taking up for Zayc as well as Hamza's anti-black rhetoric, as well as they're connected with Ali, who is posting suspected white supremacists and posting whole small essays about all we got to do is stop looking up to white people and white supremacy will go away. This is not someone who should be leading an organization that focuses on quote-unquote indigenous Muslims. Even in one of Zayc's most recent videos, he says that police brutality isn't always based on racial lines because you find similar patterns not as severe. You just nullified your whole argument. When you were about to say, what he was about to say was, hold on, I'm gonna continue. Basically, he's saying you find similar patterns, but not as severe. Once you said not as severe, you just nullified your whole argument and proved black people right. But then he says, well, twice as many white folks are killed by cops based on raw numbers. But see, this is the dishonesty of him. Because what he isn't telling you is most of those white folk who are killed by cops is because they had weapons and were shooting back or fighting back in some type of way. Compare that to the brutality and killing of black unarmed citizens, and that's where you see the discrepancy in the issues. So, whose feelings is he trying to protect? What is he trying to put into the black Muslims' minds? To me, him becoming the head of this organization is just now a way to get at the street level. You know, those Muslims who are less financially able, he can get at them and coon their minds up. And on the other end, Zayc handles all you black Muslims who are a little bit more uppity and got a little bit more money, and so you can go to bougie schools. So now Zayc can handle the black folk with a little bit more money. And on the other end, like I said, now you have Zayd handling the black Muslims with a little bit less money in the streets. It's basically an all-out attack on the minds of black Muslims, especially the youth. And then you wonder why some reverts leave Islam or go back to street life. It's because people in institutions like this offer them no real solutions to white supremacy. They only make excuses for it, and then they look down on black people themselves and their communities. And when you call out Zayc as we are doing, I already told you earlier of one way they deflect or have their supporters deflect is by saying how wrong you are for coming at the people of knowledge. But having knowledge means nothing if it doesn't cause you to fear Allah, if it doesn't cause you to stand for justice, to stand against oppression. When you're standing or even making excuses for the side of the enemy, then your knowledge is worthless, and I can't really call you a person of knowledge. But another deflection they use when they are called out is to call everyone liberals or leftists. Oh, you're getting your head bashed in by race soldiers on the police department, or you're getting gunned down in the streets by race soldiers, and you're standing up against it and protesting and uprising in the streets. Oh, you're a leftist. You're a part of BLM crowd. You're a part of the Antifa crowd. This is how they try to right you all for standing up against white supremacy. Oh, you must be one of those critical race theorist people. You're trying to bring down Islam with your liberalism. This is the problem with critical race theory. Why? Because I want to replace white supremacy with a system of justice, namely Islam? These fools are swinging by the conservatives' jockstraps, man. And it's sickening. They're doing this because, one, they are afraid. In their minds, if we speak up against white supremacy, they might kill us or put us in jail. Remember, the government was on Hamza's head for a minute back in the day, and then he acquiesced to them, and then all of a sudden we ended up seeing him sitting next to Bush at some 9/11 conference. So they're scared. That's the first reason. And that's another example of how their knowledge doesn't benefit them. Because knowledge should make you fear only Allah. Everyone gets scared, but the difference is soldiers push forward and place their trust in Allah. Musa was scared, but when Allah told him, I am with you, do not fear, Musa went forward and put his fear to the side. The second reason they side with white supremacy is because they want the little crumbs that are flicked off the table. It's about money. They want to live like scavengers and eat whatever crumbs massa flicks off the table to them like they're some pet dog. Looking for a pat on the head from Zaddy. It's about money. And this is where we need to work on things, my people, because a lot of our black masajid are struggling. Masajid in general are. A lot of these Islamic institutions in black areas are struggling. They got to do fundraisers and cookouts all the damn time because no one wants to give. That is a problem, people. And what happens is the weak, buck-broken Sambo imams and other house Muslims say, well, to hell with all of this. I can go to the side with the conservatives and they'll throw some money behind our institutions. So that's what these people are doing. This is one reason why Zayd is being sent into Mana, so he can talk his right-wing rhetoric and bring funds into Mana. So it's about money. They also know that a lot of these immigrant Muslims, and we got to say it real, a lot of these immigrant Muslims are filled with anti-black hatred. So when they hear these folks talk about the black community like they do, they're like, oh yeah, this is the place for us to be. So it all ties in. Just because we as Muslims have conservative views doesn't mean you need to ride with the white supremacists and suspected white supremacists who have conservative views. Just because y'all two agree on something doesn't mean y'all have to team up. Because you're siding with them means now that you have to deny white supremacy in order to get some funding and some help. And this is why I know these folks are dangerous for the black community. Because there is no way, absolutely no way, you are this educated. And allegedly, Abdullah bin Hamid Ali and I think Zayc Shaker, they're both foundational black Americans. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no way you can be this educated and have lived in America and then try to deny or be apologetic toward white supremacy. There's no way. You grew up and had to deal with the police like that? Come on now. Or having seen your friends deal with the police. What happens is these type of people, they go overseas and study, and then they soak up that anti-black racism over there and bring it back over here. That's what happens. You know, how is it that Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik Shabazz, a man who was from the streets, no education, went to jail, taught himself, cleaned himself up? How is it a man with no degree can see the white supremacy, but you and all your knowledge and ijaza can't? It's because you are a liar and a devious devil. And you will not lead my brothers and sisters astray. The black Muslims of America are waking up to your bull crap, and they see it for what it is. All it is promoting white supremacy with a kufi. That's all it is. Promoting white supremacy with the hijab. That's it. And, you know, I pray that Allah will continue to wake us up and guide us to the truth. Ameen. Thank you for tuning in to Black and Muslim in America, Black Muslim in America. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. And with that, until next time, I'm out. Peace and assalamu alaikum.